Alternative History, Episode 1, Act 1, Paris Falls. The point of divergence is not Germany conquering every mile of France, that is the wrong standard. In 1914, Paris is the political nerve center. If the German right wing holds its width, avoids the historic failure at the Marne, and forces Paris into evacuation or surrender, France is not necessarily destroyed, but French confidence is broken. This matters because Europe has not yet accepted total war. The leaders still think in terms of campaigns, capitals, cabinet decisions, and negotiated settlements. Paris falling early creates leverage before 4 years of trenches make compromise politically impossible. So the claim is narrow but powerful. Paris does not have to be destroyed, it only has to become impossible to defend politically. Act 2. The settlement window. Britain is not defeated. That is the first correction. The Royal Navy still controls the sea. The British Empire still has money, ports, coal, cables, and global reach. But if France is crippled early, London faces a harder question. Is the continent worth bleeding the empire dry? Britain may choose to bargain, not surrender. It can preserve naval supremacy, preserve the empire, and limit German gains without committing to an unlimited land war. This is not weakness. It is imperial calculation. Britain's choice is not victory or defeat. It is whether Germany's continental dominance is dangerous enough to risk the whole imperial system. Act 3. A German-dominated Europe. If Paris falls early, Germany probably becomes more dominant, not less. That needs to be said plainly. This alternate timeline is not a liberal peace. Germany may build a European order through customs unions, security treaties, railway influence, banking, military guarantees, and pressure over smaller states. Austria-Hungary is pulled closer to Berlin. France is weakened. Belgium and the Low Countries live under permanent pressure. Eastern Europe becomes a German strategic frontier. But this is not automatically Nazi Europe. It is colder, more imperial, more conservative, and more bureaucratic. The danger does not vanish. It changes form. Act 4. Russia without Lenin's window. Russia was unstable before the war. Land hunger, autocracy, labor unrest, national minorities, and weak legitimacy were all real. But instability is not the same as Bolshevik victory. The better comparison is 1905. Russia had already suffered revolution, strikes, mutiny, and defeat by Japan, and the regime survived through concessions and repression. Germany in 1918 is another warning. Monarchy collapsed, communist uprisings happened, but communism did not automatically win. Without 4 years of exhaustion, mutiny, hunger, and military collapse, Russia may still reform, fracture, or turn military nationalist. But Lenin's exact doorway may never open. Russia may still have a revolution. It does not have to be Lenin's revolution. Act 5. No Versailles, no Weimar crisis. No Versailles as we know it means no Nazi pathway as we know it. That is not the same as saying Germany becomes harmless. German nationalism, militarism, anti-Semitism, and authoritarian politics all existed before Hitler. But Hitler's actual rise depended on a specific chain: defeat after sacrifice, the stab-in-the-back myth, Versailles humiliation, reparations, occupation crises, Weimar fragility, paramilitary politics, and later the Great Depression. If Germany gains leverage in 1914, that chain is broken or badly weakened. Germany may become more dominant. But dominance is not the same as Hitler's Germany. Act 6. No Holocaust in the historical form. This must be handled carefully. Anti-Semitism does not disappear. Ethnic nationalism does not disappear. Pogroms, discrimination, expulsions, and state cruelty may still scar Eastern Europe. But the Holocaust in the form we know required more than hatred. It required the Nazi state, totalitarian racial ideology, a war of annihilation in the East, occupation of huge Jewish populations, and bureaucratic industrial killing under total war. If Hitler's state never forms in the same way, and if the Second World War does not happen in the same way, that machinery is far less likely to emerge. Anti-Semitism survives. The historical Holocaust likely does not. Act 7. Britain converts empire, not liquidates it. The British Empire does not stay frozen. Nationalism is already rising. Ireland, India, Egypt, South Africa, and Africa are not passive pieces on a board. But Britain, without the same 4-year bloodletting, without the same debt burden, and perhaps without a second European war in the same form, has more time. It may convert empire into a looser Commonwealth system from strength, rather than liquidating it from exhaustion. Canada, Australia, and New Zealand remain closer to London. India still pushes towards self-rule. Africa still changes. But the retreat may be slower, more negotiated, and more strategically coherent. Britain may not keep the empire as empire, but it may keep the system. Act 8. India and the Imperial Timetable. India still moves towards self-rule. That is the pushback. Indian nationalism was not created by British weakness in 1945. It had its own leaders, organizations, moral force and momentum. But timing changes. In our history, Britain exits in 1947 after 2 world wars, financial exhaustion, military strain, and imperial legitimacy collapse. In this timeline, a stronger Britain may negotiate a longer transition, perhaps dominion status in the 1950s, fuller independence between the late 1950s and 1970s. Partition may still happen, it may happen differently. Ireland probably still moves in the 1920s. Egypt pushes out between the 1930s and 50s. British Africa may shift later, in the 1960s to 80s. India still leaves. The question is whether it leaves a bankrupt empire or negotiates out of a living commonwealth. Act 9. America large, not supreme. Do not make America small. The United States is still vast, industrial, rich, continental, and increasingly naval. It remains one of the great powers. But without 2 European world wars destroying the old powers, America may not become the organizer of Europe. No same exhausted Britain, no same ruined France, no same Nazi Germany, no same Soviet superpower, no same NATO order in the form we know. America may be the richest outsider, creditor, and balancing power across the Atlantic, but it is not automatically the owner of the European security system. America is still powerful. It is not automatically supreme in Europe. Act 10. A different European world, 1975. By 1975, this is not necessarily a democratic or peaceful Europe. Germany is likely the dominant continental power. Britain is less exhausted, more Commonwealth-centered, and still maritime financial. France is diminished, but culturally and diplomatically important. Russia remains the great uncertainty: reformed monarchy, military state, agrarian republic, or fragmented empire, but likely not the same Soviet superpower. There may be no Nazi Germany in the historical form, no Holocaust in the historical form, no American-led European order in the same form. The empire transforms more slowly, especially India and Africa. But this is not utopia. German hegemony could be harsh. Russia could still erupt. Colonial rule could last longer. Democracy may advance more slowly. Paris falling early does not save the world. It prevents one version of catastrophe and opens another European century altogether.